What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the TPT podcast. We're here on a Monday, a couple days after the draft, going over all of our draft picks, how this is shaping up around the league, and what other teams did to take a look at what's going to transpire, what the Chiefs are going to have to deal with on the AFC and some NFC teams. We're here with, of course, Zach. He did a phenomenal job before the draft, kind of going over what the Kansas City Chiefs could be going with and what direction they could be taking, which was, somewhat accurate. Zach, how you feeling about the Kansas City Chiefs after we're getting closer and closer to forming a roster?
Well, the first 2 days actually, I wasn't super pumped about what we had done, but the more I was able to look at the prospects that we got, and also that day three where I'm really starting to come around to this draft that Veach and the scouting team put together. And so I'm looking forward to seeing these players in action over OTAs and training camp and all that.
Yeah, I was actually a fan of a lot of what we did. I think they drafted the positions right. We'll have to see if the guys turn out. But I think they drafted positional needs. They didn't draft something where it was like, okay, we don't really need that, or they went in there and they got a running back in the second or third round. I think each round they hit on the picks we kind of needed. Now it's just seeing if these were the right guys for the job. I wasn't a big Worthy guy going into the draft, but watching some of his highlights and some of his tape and film after we drafted him, and noticing he's not just a fast guy. There's other things to do, and he plays hard for a guy, and he'll go through guys for someone who's being 165 pounds. So I noticed those little things of, again, when he had a fight for a couple more yards, he was trying to go through guys to get there. So I like that aspect about him. What did you think about Xavier Worthy? I know there were some other guys you kind of had in mind, but what did you feel like Xavier Worthy? Do you think he's going to be the right fit in Kansas City?
Absolutely. Like the player, I was less on Xavier Worthy as a player than I was him coming to the Chiefs. Any other team in that 20 to 30 range, I don't know if he's the best fit other than maybe San Francisco, who I think was planning on taking him if we had not went above them, traded up. Because unless San Francisco with Xavier Worthy would have been dangerous. And then we saw them go in day two with someone that was very similar to Worthy. And so I did expect them to pick him up if we hadn't. But with the Chiefs, I mean, we know he's going to produce. There is no way he doesn't produce. With the explosion and athletic ability that he has, and then Reed's ability to just get people wide open, on top of the fact that he can already run routes himself, he's going to produce in this offense. There's no doubt about it. Now, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Just to touch on what you're saying, it's like, and I don't think he's ever going to be a guy that's getting a ton of receptions per game, but I think he's going to be that guy where he may only have 2 or 3 receptions in a game, but it's going to be for like 80 yards because he is going to be a barn burner. He's going to be a guy where he's going to have one play for like 45 to 50 yards. Like that's what he is in Kansas City, and that's all we really need him to be. Is a guy, if he has one reception every game for 45 yards, 50 yards, that's kind of what they need. They need someone who can just get them down the field. Because if we think about it, the only guy they really had to do that was a check down to Rice, and he would just burn people for 30 or 40 yards sometimes. But they did not have a downfield threat. Their best downfield threat last year was probably Watson. And he's not a guy where you think, oh, my God, this guy's going to blow right past me. Now Patrick Mahomes has 2 of those guys. So do you know who it really affects on the offense? It really affects Pacheco. That's what really get excited me for, because teams can't have these heavy formations. They can't put all these linebackers out there. They can't put these guys that are slow. Because if you do that, Patrick Mahomes is going to be like, oh, Rice go out wide, Brown go out wide, or I have new Xavier Worthy to go out there and just burn people. And even, again, if he sticks around, Kadarius Toney, if he can kind of get his mind right and stick around, you have 4 to 5 guys that can just absolutely take the top off a defense. And defenses hate speed. Any defender will tell you what's the worst thing you have going up against a team you don't want them to have. Speed. No one wants to get in a track race with a team is speed. And we've already seen the Chiefs are a team that can just battle it out, just be in the trenches, grit and grime type team like they were last year. And now they have this speed search to be a finesse team. Oh, it's just absolutely beautiful.
This offense could really take it back to 2019, 2020 levels. Seriously, I know 2022 was very efficient and we were the best offense in the league that year, but it was not the same as the offenses of years prior. This offense, when it's ridiculous how much talent is in this receiving core along with Pacheco and Kelsey. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown are like spitting images of each other on opposite sides of the field, opening it up for Kelsey and Rice underneath and moving people out of the box for Pacheco. And it's honestly like, I love the pick now. The more I talk about it, the more I start to really love the pick, because he might not have been the best receiver on the board at the time. He might not end up being the best receiver. But for our offense right now, to get back, to turn back the clock a little bit and become explosive, he is the perfect player to draft, because he will produce no matter what.
Yeah, and that's where you saw a dominant Chiefs offense, is when they had barn burners, guys who could just fly up the field, the Legion of Zoom. That's when their offense was at their best. Is you have the possession type guys, and they'll keep those guys around. They'll probably keep the Watsons and the Noah Grays and the Travis Kelce's, because those guys are just going to get you your little boom, boom, boom. And we saw Patrick Mahomes can do that. If you have to turn Patrick Mahomes into Alex Smith, he'll be Alex Smith. He doesn't care. He'll be like, I'll beat you boring. I don't care.
I'll win 2
now
Super
he's
Bowls.
like, oh, I can beat you with the track team now. Oh, it's over. And back to the 45, 48, 50 touchdown seasons. Like, I mean, again, he did the 48 touchdown seasons with, Juju Smith. Now what is he going to do? And again, if the offensive line can still be as dominant, I know they're going to maybe have to plug in a lesser guy in the left side or the right side, wherever it may be. But you still have Pacheco, who's going to run the hell out of the ball. You have another speed demon, and the guy who came over from England.
Lee Summit.
What?
Lee Summit.
There you go. His name is leaving me at the moment, but again, his nickname overseas was the Lightning. So again, if he can come in and just be a guy where even on special teams, he's just being a guy where every now and then you can do a little screen pass and he's burning for 10 to 15 yards, we'll take that. We will absolutely take that. I do have high hopes for him. Just because, again, he is, and a lot of people think, he's not used to the NFL. I do think it's going to be an adjustment plays-wise, but the physicality in rugby is just as physical as the NFL. They don't wear pads over there, so I think he'll adapt to the physicality. That'll be no problem. It's just adapting to a playbook. So that's why I think he's going to be a great special teamer. I don't have any doubt he can get the special teams and get the ball in his hands and just go. Yeah. The way that the special team, kick return is designed now, it's literally going to put the ball just in his hands automatically. So now he just has to go. And then, again, Kadarius Toney. I know we were kind of just talking about the receiving core here. We're going to get more into the more picks here. But the way that the offense was the 7th-ranked offense last year with a top 3 defense that we're going to have this year, now you're going to have a top 3 offense. And again, you're seeing not just Chiefs fans say, you're seeing a lot of people around the league saying they are absolutely geared for a 3P.
Absolutely. I mean, not only was our receiving core absolute shambles, literally selling games almost every week, dropped passes leading to pick sixes. Like 2 of our losses came off of just Kadarius Toney plays. On top of that, we had that elite defense, which limits the yards because we don't always have to go out and get that many yards. This offense could seriously be record breaking. Like it's ridiculous the amount of underneath routes that we're going to be able to hit to crossers and drags to Xavier Worthy, Marquise Brown, Rashee Rice. I need football to happen. We need it.
And to be the 7th-ranked offense last year, still be top 10. And let's remember, there was games where the receivers were literally tipping the ball and giving points to the other team and just literally could not catch anything. And now they're going to be one of the high points of the offense. Obviously, we got to see where Rice is. He may miss the first half or the first 5 or 6 games of the season. So you may not have him. You may only have him for 11 to 10 games, but you're still going to have Hollywood Brown, these other guys. You're going to have the same receiving core you did last year. So again, at the worst, you're still going to be, the first couple of weeks of 7th-ranked offense, probably at your worst. So you're going to have the same receivers you did last year, plus the additional. So there's not really like, if you lose Rice, you're screwed. No, you're going to have the same receivers minus Rice, but you also added 2 other really good receivers who can make an impact this season. I'm not saying Xavier Worthy is going to be a 1,000-yard receiver. I think he's going to have something around 500 to 600 yards. Again, we saw Rice, Rice did not have this much just burst and this just hype coming into the season as Xavier Worthy has right now. So again, you could see him have even a better season than Rice did. I know Rice had a phenomenal year, but let's remember, Rice was getting most of his yards just off of catching screen routes and taking them just 20, 30 yards. Now you have Xavier Worthy. If you can get the same, obviously Rice is a bigger guy, he would kind of fight through some contact, but now you're having Xavier Worthy. If you get some screen passes like that, what is he going to do? What is he going to do? He may take it home every single time. We know Rice would get to the 1 or 2 yard line.
Yeah.
But I really like the first round pick. What did you think about our second round pick? We drafted a offensive tackle. What did you think about that from BYU?
Yeah, Kingsley Suamayataya. We'll learn how to say it in the coming weeks.
Suamataya.
I
think so.
I didn't know that he was the guy that we saw a few months ago jumping out of or it was probably a year ago by now, or multiple years, jumping out of the pool, like straight out of a pool onto the.
I did not know that was.
He's an O lineman jumping straight out of like a 5 foot deep pool.
Yeah,
that's crazy. So he's extremely athletic, which we love that. I mean, the way Veach is drafted in recent years, if the guy's athletic, he's on our board, and if he's not, he's probably not going to be picked by us. And I love the fact that we went ahead and got a guy that was at good value, but we got a guy that can compete with Wanye, and we don't have to sign a veteran now because chances are Wanye is a second-year player. He was a third-round pick last year. This guy's a second-round pick who was projected mid-second, early second even, and we have them battling it out. Likelihood is that one of them is a good starter. Out of 2 guys that were decently high draft picks, one of them is a good starter. So I really like that pick. We had to go tackle in those first couple rounds because there really is no option. Like we had to. Of course, going linebacker or edge or corner would have been like a luxury to be able to do, but I'm glad that we went left tackle in that second round.
Yeah, I like Kingsley a lot. Again, very athletic. As I watched some of the videos from his time at BYU, and I remember him a little bit at when Oklahoma played him, did a phenomenal job versus Oklahoma. But I like him a lot. The Chiefs got him in the second round. He started the last 2 years at BYU, was all conference for the Big 12. And the Big 12, they have some beefy guys on the offensive line. Half the Oklahoma offensive line in the Big 12 goes to the draft and does well. You also have some other teams, Texas.
TCU had a tackle go.
Right, yeah. So, again, to be, regarded as one of the best tackles in the Big 12, that's huge. So they were able to get a, top 6 to 8 tackle, whatever it may be, in the Big 12. That's phenomenal. So I like him a lot. I think he has a chance to start. I really do. I think he has a chance to start. He's really athletic. Where he kind of lacks sometimes is some of the bigger brute offensive or defensive lines kind of get him. That's where I kind of was noticing some of the heavier guys kind of get him. He does well versus some of the quicker guys because he's, again, very athletic. But I have really high hopes for this. I think the offensive line, I don't think there's going to be any drop off. I think Pacheco's going to have a big year because of what I just said about the receivers. Teams are going to have lighter formations versus the Chiefs. If they don't, what are the others going to give? If you don't do the lighter formations, that guy named Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown are going to burn you. And if you have the lighter formations, our running back is going to destroy you. Isaiah Pacheco is going to destroy you. So those safeties and those corners are not going to be able to stop Pacheco. So I think Kingsley, and again, the way that Chiefs have been able to have their develop offensive lines, you look at the guys we've drafted and have done well. Obviously, some of the tackles we've drafted haven't done very well. Well, again, the interior guys have done well. If he can learn from some of these guys we have on the offensive line, I think Jawan Taylor, another guy on the offensive line, will have a little bit better year as long as he just doesn't have the full starts because he had the most time. He gave the most time for Patrick Mahomes over any other tackle, but he also led the league in penalties. So
I'll take that.
And that has to do with the holding. He may have got Patrick Mahomes a lot of time, but he was holding a lot. So that's why he had a lot of time. But I do have high hopes for him. I think he will start.
Yeah, I hope he does. And Wanye was decent last year in the snaps that he took when Donovan Smith had that, was it back or neck injury?
Right.
But, I mean, I'm just rooting for it to be a good battle in the training camp.
Right,
for us to come out with the guy, and it's like, this is our guy for the future. And learning from Tooney, especially because Tooney, he's a left guard, but when Tooney steps in a tackle, he's an elite tackle. Like, I really think if he was a tackle, he would be a top 5 guy at the left tackle position. And so being able to have him as a mentor and Creed and Trey and Jawan, like there's I'm sorry. He's stepping into the best situation that a rookie left tackle can possibly step into.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Loved the second round pick. Kansas City Chiefs did not have a third round pick, but that's okay because in the fourth round they got an absolute stud.
Steal.
Yes. Absolute stud at tight end. Tight end out of Texas A&M or TCU. TCU. What did you think about the fourth round pick? Tell us about our new tight end.
I love that pick. I was at my nephew's birthday on day 3, so I didn't actually watch the picks. But when I saw that come in, I actually watched him in person because I was at a Kansas State game in Manhattan this year and I saw him play. And he is a crazy athlete, third best athlete for tight ends in this class. Mm-hmm. And he produced, and that's all you can ask for, on top of the fact that he was one of the best pass blocking tight ends in the entire country. Now, I was watching the PFF show the day after, and they said that he wasn't a good blocker or something, but they don't know what they're talking about apparently because he was the number 1 PFF graded pass blocker. So it's like, what are you talking about, PFF, if you're PFF? And so I'm super pumped about that because Gray has shown that he's a good NFL player, but he's more of a possession guy. And he's not going to be that guy that gets all the production. But Jared Wiley can really be a big play threat and can help stretch the field down the seams. He's honestly a perfect pick at that spot.
Yeah. I like this pick a lot. I do think this has Kelsey potential all over it. Like the successor, not Travis Kelsey, but the successor.
Yes. I like that.
That's successor to Travis Kelsey. This is the type of guy who I think can be a touchdown machine because he really was a touchdown machine. Started at Texas or played all 12 games at Texas in 2019. 2020 played 9 games, got a little injured, but he had still had 4 touchdowns in those 9 games. 2011, he did very, or not 2011. 2021, he did well for Texas. It was 3 years that Texas played extremely well. And then honorable mentions, Big 12 player in 2022, had a phenomenal year in 2022. And then 2023, really just, he was an absolute stud. Started all 12 games, had 500 yards, 8 touchdowns. 47 receptions. Absolute stud. One of the better tight ends in the Big 12. I think this guy is going to be a touchdown machine because of the size. And again, and he really is a physical guy. He's 250, a big guy. I think this guy can be tight end too. I think this is a great pick in the 4th round, and they needed to get that Travis Kelsey successor. So I really, really like this pick. And the next pick coming up, I'm going to talk about, we talked about a little bit before the show. I really like this pick, but I think this pick has huge, like in the next 2 to 3 years, potential being a star in this league.
Yes, this guy Jaden Hicks has been absolutely, everyone that I've heard talk about the draft loves him. Now, you know the YouTuber Bengal, he does the Madden and like the draft stuff. He had Jaden Hicks in his top 30 players, and we got him in the 4th round. Yes, he is huge. He's 6'2", 211. He can play the nickel corner. He can play in the slot. He can play all around the field. He can play in the box. He can play free safety. He's athletic. He's kind of stiff in the way that he's not the quickest. He's actually faster than he is quick, but he is absolutely perfect for Steve Spagnuolo's defense. And having lost Mike Edwards and having number 6 Brian Cook breaking his leg last year, sadly, wasn't it a broken leg?
Yeah.
We needed another safety, and I'm so glad we addressed it with great value in the 4th round. At the end of the 4th round, this might be my favorite pick of the draft.
Yeah, again, this is another guy because, again, they lost Mike Edwards. You had Cook get hurt, so he got hurt. So who knows what his rehab looks like coming back. So he had a pretty nasty injury late in the season, so who knows how early he's going to come back. So you have Jaden Hicks. Shout out Jaden. You got me, Jaden. I got to cheer for this guy, Jaden. So shout out all the Jadens I've seen just getting drafted lately. I guess a lot of the 2000s kids are just getting
exactly
in the league now. And that was a big 2000s name because the amount of Jadens in the NFL and NBA right now are insane. I remember being a kid. I didn't know anyone named Jaden, but now we got a lot of Jaden. So hopefully this
I know a
Jaden
lot of
works out.
Jadens.
We're basically the same height. We're not the same weight, but I like this pick. Again, this 4th-round pick, I think these 2 4th-round picks are starters. He may be a starter day one, but Wiley, I think, has potential to be a starter at some point when Travis Kelce, if he ever does, falls off or decides to retire. 6'1", 211. Redshirt his first year in college, but the last 2 seasons has been a starter. Another Pac-12 guy. We got a Pac-12 guy here. And we've had success with Pac-12 cornerbacks. Look at McDuffie. I think this guy is going to be that type of talent. I think we're going to be looking at Pro Bowl type talent. A lot of people had him in their top 60. Like you said, some people even had him in their top 30.
Yeah.
They're like, this guy's a second to first round or borderline first round pick. Like this guy, I think, and he's just a physical player. He loves to get into, he loves to get dirty with it. He loves to get nasty. I really like this pick. I think this guy has potential to be a day one impact guy. So I think this is one of the steals of the draft. And guess who we got this pick from?
It was Buffalo. We gave the 3rd and we got the 4th.
If these Buffalo. 2 guys, Worthy and Hicks, end up being stars in this league, Buffalo has to be sitting there saying, oh my God, we keep getting them studs. They gave us Mahomes. I think even Pacheco was a part of that because one of those picks later we got, it was either Pacheco or somebody else. May have been somebody else, but one of the other picks I know was from Buffalo because when we traded Mahomes and all that, it ended up being from Buffalo. So yeah, we could really be sitting here saying the Buffalo Bills are one of our second. We have it goes Brett Veach, and then we have the Buffalo Bills as our second best GM. So yeah, hopefully that turns out. So our 1st-round picks are looking great right now. So we're going to be moving on to the 5th round, but what is your expectations just on our 4th-round picks right now?
I expect production from both of them. Now Wiley's farther down the depth chart. Probably he's probably still going to be behind Gray. And I doubt at this point, we keep Irv Smith because there's really no need for 4 tight ends. And we just drafted a guy in the 4th round. And so Irv Smith might be a casualty, but I expect Wiley to get some red zone production. We do play a lot of heavy sets, so get some snaps in that area too. And Jaden Hicks, I really expect him to be a starter by midseason. I at least a starter in the sense of we use a lot of safeties. Last year we played Connor, we played Cook, and we played Edwards, not at the same time, but they would all rotate in. So a starter in the sense that he's in the rotation.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we'll kind of breeze through these last 3 rounds. What did you think about our 5th-round pick? We went O-line from Penn State.
Oh, Nourzad. All I've seen about Nourzad is that he was a very good run blocker and that he's played all over the line. Mm-hmm. And that he's also very athletic. Okay. And so that sounds like a Chiefs player. That sounds like an Allegretti replacement in the sense that whoever gets injured, he can move there. Or if a tackle gets injured, we can move Tooney out there and then he can move to the guard position. And so that's perfect because the Allegretti loss, I mean, if we don't have Allegretti last year, do we win the Super Bowl? Probably not. If you think about it, the Baltimore game ended up being close. The 49ers game went to overtime. And we had a guy that stepped in for an all-pro and played at probably near a Pro Bowl level. And so we needed that replacement. We were getting a little thinner on offensive line. And so this pick was really this is a now pick. A pick, he might be a starter in the future, but it's really now for our depth.
Yeah, so this guy right here, I feel like, again, a lot of Penn State offensive linemen, they usually do well. This has got to be – he's a little on the lighter side, 6'3", 317, so he's a little lighter. But this is the guy you got to have, like you said, your Nick Allegretti, where you need heavy formation, you need 1 or 2 yards, or whatever it may be. You got to get Pacheco in the end zone right here. This has got to be the type of guy where he's the 6th offensive lineman. He's got to be able to come in there and be that 6th guy. Again, we've seen Nick Allegretti. He was the GOAT 6th offensive lineman. And then, look, he just got paid. Where did he go? I think it was Washington.
Washington, yep.
Washington. And look at all these players. I mean, apparently Washington loves our offensive lineman. We had Wiley, who was kind of our 6th guy, starter at one point, be a guy for us. And then he went to Washington. Now you have Nick Allegretti, who got paid. And he'll probably be a starter in Washington. So that's great for him. So, yes, hopefully this is that guy. Hopefully he's that guy we develop, and he's like kind of our 6th man off the bench. And he comes in, and then another team comes in and they're like, hey, we will. And I think the Chiefs may get a pick for that. I don't know what pick Wiley was, or if he was an undrafted guy. So again, they could end up getting something for that. So I have high hopes for Hunter. I think he'll be good for the Chiefs. And then our 6th-round pick. What did you think about them getting Hayden from Tennessee?
Tennessee.
For the
now
quarterback from Tennessee.
This sounds now it's not to the extreme that the Trey Smith pick was, but I mean, look at the similarities between this pick. A 6th-round guy from Tennessee who was very highly recruited, who had an injury that made his draft stock go down. Now, in Trey Smith's, it was a health issue. But that's the same thing in 4 different areas. Now, he wasn't the number 1 recruit like Trey Smith was, but he was a top 5 corner in his high school class. He produced in his last year. He was all SEC first team, right? Wasn't it first team? I believe it was first team. And if you think about the corners that went in that draft, from Alabama, you had Arnold, you had Kool-Aid, you had guys from other schools. For Georgia, I'm sure had a corner go off. So this guy was in the most elite conference as far as defense goes.
Yeah.
And he played as elite as any other person in his position. And he fell to us because of an injury on his shoulder, which does not really matter near as much as if he had an injury on his knee or his ankle or any of that. I love this pick as well. Like I said earlier in the pod, like day 3 was where Brett Veach really won me over with this draft. And it's because of these high upside picks that he makes every single year, and they always cash in.
Yeah, and again, Hayden, great at Tennessee. Actually played at Independence. If you guys remember Independence College from Last Chance U, you'll be able to see him in that. He was the cornerback that was getting all the interceptions, so he was very good at Independence. If you guys want to check that out, go watch that. Go watch his film at Tennessee. He did a phenomenal job over there. Played very well at Tennessee. Their 7th-round pick, they got C.J. Henson from Holy Cross, a big guy, 6'5", 300 pounds. Another offensive line guy. They are trying to just stack the offensive line, maybe prepare if they can't afford. That's what it's kind of looking at for me. If they can't afford some of these guys next year, because they may lose one of those big-time guys, Trey Smith, or Creed Humphreys. I think they're probably leaning more towards Creed Humphrey because he's a center, but you may not be able to pay some of those guys coming up. So it looks like they're really just like, this is development. If we have to sign these guys to a maybe, the guys we have to 2 or 3 deal, and then have hopefully these guys are ready by year, 3 or 4, then we have our guys. I think that's really what it looks like to me. So what did you think about our 7th-round pick to wrap up the draft before we kind of get out of here and look at the rest of the draft picks around the league?
Yeah, C.J. Henson out of Holy Cross. I watched a little bit of him yesterday while I was at the gym, just looking at some tape from all the guys that we got. He's kind of undersized, only 300 pounds on the offensive line, but he has good measurements otherwise. He's really good value in the 7th round. I'm just looking at his NFL combine thing. NFL, I don't know how much of a reliable source NFL is, but they say he's an average backup, which 7th-round pick, average backup, we'll definitely take that with the 7th-round pick. 5-second 40-yard dash, that's good. He's fat, so it's hard to run that. And other than that, good job.
Yeah. I really like this Chiefs draft. I think they nailed it. I'm sure they'll try to find another running back, a UDFA running back. And I want to talk about this too. They got a receiver. His name is leaving me from what is it? James Madison. I maybe should look him up. But phenomenal receiver. I was watching a lot of his film, and God, his name is leaving me. He has a really generic name, but his name is leaving me. Maybe I can pull it up, or you can pull it up.
I'm looking at my favorite undrafted free agent we got was that linebacker at Penn State. I was hoping we would get some sort of linebacker throughout the draft, and I was looking at him through round 4 through 7, and he still wasn't leaving. So the fact that we signed him was cool. His name is Reggie Brown, the fast
Reggie
guy.
Brown, and because the receiver from Philadelphia was named Reggie Brown. So yes, I finally remembered. I need to just remember Philadelphia Eagles receiver Reggie Brown. Okay, Reggie Brown. Go check out his film if you haven't, Chiefs fans. Guy's a stud. The way he can go track the ball is absolutely phenomenal. He's a guy where you could maybe, again, John Ross or, those type of guys are going to be fighting for that 6th spot, that 5th spot, because you're going to have Rice, Hollywood, Worthy, probably Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, and then it's probably going to come down to that sixth spot with Watson, Ross, and then whatever other guy kind of makes his mark. I know there's what's the receiver last year that did well, but he got injured.
Nico Remigio.
Yes, did very well. So he has a chance to make it. It'll factor in what they do with Zama, whatever his the London. If they switch him to wide receiver or running back, I think he's leaning more towards running back. But again, they typically pick 6 receivers. I would really like to see them kind of keep Ross and develop him. Kadarius Toney, what are they going to do with him? This is really exciting. This offseason, this preseason, really exciting with the receiving core, what's going to happen there. But let's get in the final 5 minutes here. Let's get into the around the league. We like to always talk about around the league. Some of the picks that happened. First, we're going to get into the quarterbacks. Then we're going to get into what's happening with what was some of your winners in the first round and some of your losers in the first round. The losers, it's some of the people. It's pretty obvious here, but let's talk about the quarterbacks first. The quarterbacks. Where are some of these quarterbacks you liked, and where you think some of these quarterbacks you just think it's not a good fit for them?
I really wanted Penix to go somewhere where he could play. Because he's old already. He's like almost 24 years old. Like, let the man go somewhere where he can play, please. Why did you draft him? And I know everyone's saying this, so it's played out, but that's everyone's reaction because it's so obvious. Right. You have a team that could easily win your division and could definitely put up a fight for your conference, and you draft someone who will not even touch the field for 2 years.
Right.
You could have drafted an edge rush. You could have got Latu or Latu, whatever his name is. You could have got Dallas Turner. You could have gotten anyone that can contribute to that defense that is the decent defense, but it's kind of void of talent in some spots. You could have drafted anyone.
Right.
But you went for the 24-year-old quarterback who's going to have to see. He's basically going to be Brandon Whedon by the time he gets there, by the time he starts playing.
He'll be a 26, 27-year-old basically rookie. I know that, again, with 17 games and almost maybe 18 games next year, you could have where it's going to be like the backup bowls, and you're going to see some of these guys play. And, again, where we have a Wednesday game and then a Sunday's games where you could have teams literally just like treat it where they're like, we're going to rest our guy 1 week and put in this rookie or put in this backup. So backup quarterbacks are really going to be like bullpen pitchers in the next couple of years, where you're going to maybe need to just rest your quarterback if you have a 17, where these 17 game seasons and your guys are just getting nicked up, where you have it at the end of the season where these guys kind of play that backup bowl game at the end of the game, at the end of the year, because teams have their season wrapped up, where guys are, again, 36-year-old Kirk Cousins coming off of injuries, where you kind of like, hey, we want to sit him this week because he's got some swelling or whatever. Let's go put him in. But other than that, he ain't going to start to probably 26 years old.
Yeah,
because it's a shame. And if you're saying, well, I'm a Falcons fan, and we have people around the league that listen to this show that are Falcons fans. If you're a Falcons fan, you're rooting for Michael Penix to start. You're rooting for your team to be bad. You're rooting for either Kirk Cousins to be hurt, Kirk Cousins to be bad, and your team to be bad. One of those things.
For me, it's less about the Falcons fans. Like, cool. I mean, for me, it's really about Penix. I do not like people being forced to sit when there are teams out there that would play him immediately. I mean, I know it's the business. He's still getting paid millions, but it's like this guy, if he wants to really make a career, he doesn't want to start his career off 7 years after the average rookie does. Like, that's no, you know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. And that's really what you're looking at.
I hated that for many reasons, not just for the Falcons, but also for Michael himself. As far as obviously Caleb was a foregone conclusion. Jaden Daniels, most people thought he was going to go there. Drake May, same thing. It wasn't as certain with Drake May, but I'm glad Bo Nix went to Denver. Very glad, because he was the last of those 6 quarterbacks to go. He was the last one that people wanted. Okay, and Denver's now going to be kind of hesitant to maybe go quarterback first round next year. I know the quarterback class isn't great next year, but when you just spent a 12th pick on a quarterback, you want to see it play out. And I see Bo Nix as an older guy who doesn't really have what it takes to be that guy in the NFL. And so I love that for the Denver Broncos.
I literally started clapping.
Yeah.
And and I'm not gonna lie, I like this player. When the Raiders drafted Brock Bowers,
you clapped
because I hate to say it.
I was sad.
The last time the Raiders have hit on an early round pick.
I mean, but I think they just did because Bowers is legit at football.
No, Bowers is good, but you just drafted a tight end last year. You don't have a quarterback to throw to him. You don't have an offensive line. So he's not going to be able to be the best Brock Bowers he can be. Again, when he just came from playing under the best circumstance, now he has to basically be their number 2 in their offense. With, again, probably a glorified backup being your starter or Aiden O'Connell. When you have either Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell who's going to be your starting quarterback. That's the worst case scenario for a guy like Brock Bowers. So, again, I love it because it is not the pick that the Raiders wanted. And a lot of Raider fans are pissed about it. And I don't blame them.
I'm not going to lie. I wouldn't be.
Because when I receiver. But, again, I like Brock Bowers. I think he's a good player. I just don't know if that is the best spot for him. And I'm not saying this because it's the Raiders. The Raiders fans are saying the same thing.
I was sad when they picked him. I'm not gonna lie. I was sad. I was like, first of all, I
didn't want him to go there. No,
I have a huge bet on the Jets to win the Super Bowl, so I wanted the Jets to take Brock Bowers. Mm-hmm. It's $50. I get $1,400 if they win. So I wanted them to take Brock Bowers, and when the Raiders took, I was like, man, this out of all the players I've watched a lot of in this draft, he's the one that just seems like he's the most above his peers. He just doesn't look like he's at the same level. Like he was playing at Georgia against SEC schools, and he made all those SEC guys look like little kids.
Yeah, I would have absolutely given my left leg for him to be on the Chiefs. I wanted him so bad. If there was a way, and early on, I wanted them to trade a pick with the Falcons, the 8th pick or whatever pick with somebody to go get Brock Bowers with Snead for Snead. I would have did it and freaking drafted the hell out of Brock Bowers, and the Chiefs would have been absolutely set up for freaking the next 15 years again with a Kelsey replacement. But in the Chargers were the only team I thought got the right guy.
They killed it. The Chargers really killed it. It hurt to watch because we already know Herbert is elite, and having Harbaugh now as your coach, like they are not completely delusional and unaware of anything. Mm-hmm. The fact that they went alt, knowing that there was going to be someone in the early second that could have a high potential, like a guy like Ladd McConkey, that was a perfect way to play it. They played their cards right. It would have been easy to just go Neighbors and then see what you got tackle early because Neighbors is that explosive guy. But the fact that they got McConkey, who I was high on, and got the best tackle in the draft, they killed it.
Yes, again, I hate to say it, Chargers great draft. They had to have a good draft. They did. They had to have a good draft because if they didn't, oh my God, they probably would have been picking first overall next year. I still think they probably will be a 7-6 team. And that's what I love. This AFC West right now is just, besides Chiefs, I know we've kind of went through every AFC West team pick right now, but they're kind of in shambles. But let's talk a little bit about, as we kind of wrap it up here, is some of your steals and winners, or we already kind of talked about some of the losers in the draft, but your winners and losers and steals of the draft. And your reaches of the draft.
Yeah, for when I saw that who was it that got Johnny Newton?
Was Johnny Newton? I don't remember. I can look. I can try to look. What round did he give him?
He went in the second round, but he went after, I think, 3 guys in the same position as him, which was ridiculous.
I really like the Panthers pick. I really like that.
Hold up. Johnny Newton. Where did Johnny Newton go? I don't know why it's not telling me.
Sorry.
Jason Newton draft. At the beginning of the second round, there was a huge run of defensive tackles. Okay, he went to the Commanders. Okay. They had just lost some talent on the defensive line. They lost Chase Young, and they lost was it Daron Payne? Mm-hmm. But Johnny Newton, I wanted him as our first pick. If we hadn't traded up and gotten that receiver, and if there had been a run on the receivers like we had foreseen before our pick, mm-hmm. I wanted Johnny Newton because that's something that we hadn't really thought about, or that hasn't been talked about much, us going with a guy that could go next to Chris Jones, because that's a luxury. And the guys next to Chris Jones aren't really difference makers at the moment. They're just like solid guys that we can rotate in and out.
Right.
But that pick, especially coming after when the Falcons jumped and got Ororo, everyone in the world thought they were going for Johnny Newton, and they went for Ororo. And then another defensive tackle went. And then finally Johnny Newton got picked. And I was like, man, the Commanders had a good draft.
Yeah. I like that. What was some of the steals I liked is I love the Panthers pick. I love the 49ers pick. They went to go get receivers. I like both those picks. What was a reach to you? You just felt like a team was reach. I know we just talked about
Penix.
Huh? Penix,
Penix.
Penix.
Yeah.
I know we just talked about Penix. Well, was there another team you felt reached?
Ororo. I just talked about it. I'm like, the Falcons made a play where they traded up. Now, listen, I'm not in the NFL front office. I don't know what the conversations are like, whether he was more highly talked about in those inner circles than outside. But I did not see Ororo within the top 50 of many boards or mock drafts at all. And they traded all the way up to get him in the early second round when he probably would have been there at their pick. And that's the type of thing that I don't understand. Now, when the Chiefs did it with Kingsley, I was mad at the time, but I didn't really think about the fact that he was the player left and that there was a big drop off after him. And so the 49ers were mulling offers with other teams. But this Ororo pick, you're trading up for a guy that wasn't even looked at as the third best at his position on the board left. So the Falcons, they sold the entire draft. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. What were and I agree with all of those. I feel like the Bengals a little bit. They unless they're going to move things around on their offensive line, they have two tackles. They have two tackles.
Yeah.
They have Orlando Brown, and then they have
Trent Brown.
Trent Williams, or not Trent Williams.
Trent Brown.
Trent Brown. And they draft the tackle unless they're going to move him to guard. But you already kind of have your guards, so didn't really understand that one. I would have honestly liked them to see receiver or a pass rusher because they're going to lose a pass rusher and they're going to lose a receiver this season. So I feel like they needed those. T. Higgins and Hendricks both said, we don't want to be here. We want to get out of Cincinnati. I don't want to play for these teams any longer. T. Higgins kind of took it back, and then he saw Hendricks request the trade. So he said, I'm actually going to take that trade.
I'm going to follow up with you. I still want to be traded. It was like he just like did it again, expected different results. Like,
right, exactly. I think he saw Hendricks getting trade or wanted out, so he was like, I'll just put that trade back right on the table. So, yeah, again, that's a team where I felt like they really have to have a good draft. They had to have a good draft, too. What was some of your teams that you felt like won the draft? Like, these teams absolutely won the draft. I definitely know mine.
Sadly, a lot of our rivals did. At least rivals in the sense of they're either in our division or they're playoff contenders. The Ravens had a really good draft, in my opinion. They bolstered their defense even more last year, and over the past few years, like their defense has been strong outside of their cornerback position, which is always decimated. Like they just get injured all the time. Yeah. And so they got TJ Tampa in a later round, which was a guy that was some people looked at him as like a top 8 to 10 corner. And they got Nate Wiggins in the first round, who kind of fell a little bit due to that injury at the combine. Mm-hmm. And so you put them next to Marlon Humphrey, and you have Kyle Hamilton in the back, and you have Roquan Smith. They don't have Patrick Queen anymore, but that's fine. They have Roquan Smith, and they have that pass rush that led the league in sacks last year. And that defense looks even better than it did last year, which is crazy because they allowed like 14 points a game. So the Chargers, as we spoke about, the Chargers hit on every position that they needed. They got some weapons for Justin Herbert with Lad McConkey and then Brendan Rice in the 7th round. That's with an elite quarterback. The fact that they did that, they got a franchise right tackle and 2 receivers. Mm-hmm. That's perfect. On top of the fact that they got Junior Colson out of Michigan, who played under Harbaugh, won a championship under Harbaugh, led the best defense in the nation by far, has speed to go sideline to sideline, can play in the box. He's a linebacker, so he plays in the box. He was another one that steals the draft. I'm just like, how did he fall? I wanted the Chiefs to take him with the 2nd round pick. I'm not going to lie. And so those 2 teams had the best drafts in my opinion, Ravens and the Chargers.
I think again the Chargers did have a really good draft. I don't know if it'll hit this year. I think this is a very much next year thing. But even though again Harbaugh's been the type of guy, look what he did with Alex Smith year one, where people are talking about he was one of the biggest busts in NFL history. The man goes out as a Pro Bowler. They get all the way to the NFC Championship game. They were a kick return away from an NFC Championship game. So I think this really will develop a lot of these guys. They're just not top heavy. They don't have a lot of NFL experience, but they absolutely nailed the draft. The Minnesota Vikings, to me, had an absolutely phenomenal first round. I didn't really take a look at their other round picks, but Dallas Turner, I think, to me, is the biggest one. They got JJ. They got that guy. Obviously, they'll try to develop him. I think he'll sit a year. But Dallas Turner, getting that pick, I mean, again, he was a top 10 pick. He was literally a top 10 pick, and they were able to get him at 17. That was absolutely huge. That was huge. So I think he's a day one impact guy. I think he has defensive player of the year potential. I love that pick for the Vikings. A lot of my buddies are Vikings fans, so they're absolutely stalled about their pick. I think J.J. McCarthy has a little Brock Purdy vibes to me. We'll have to see about him. I'm just not quite there fully on Brock Purdy, or not Brock Purdy, Brock Purdy too, but J.J. McCarthy. We'll have to kind of see about him. But I feel like every team kind of got what they needed in the first round. Buffalo Bills, I don't know what they were doing. I know they got Keon Coleman. I like Keon Coleman, but
I don't like him.
We'll have to see. Again, he's a type of guy, he's either going to moss you for 22 yards or he's going to drop the easiest pass you've ever seen. I watched him play live versus Oklahoma, and he was the type of guy, he would literally moss the hell out of you, or he dropped the easiest passes. And that's what he's going to be. He's going to be
he's not getting open. We know he's not getting open.
Huh?
Yeah, he's not getting open.
No, exactly. He's literally Dwayne Bowe. He's either going to have the craziest catch of the game, but he's also going to have the worst hands you've ever seen. So yeah, I like him. I think he has potential to do with Buffalo, but Buffalo right now, ugh. Yes. I just, it's just weird to see a lot of the teams that are going to be who have been the thorn in our side are just not going to have anything to do with us in the come playoff time. Bengals, Buffalo.
Hey, Bengals will be good if Joe Burrow can still throw the ball with his wrist.
If Joe Burrow is Patrick Mahomes-esque, yes, they'll be good. But if he is just Joe Burrow, we've never not seen Joe Burrow play with an absolute stacked roster. We just haven't. With him and LSU, he had top-heavy talent, and him, since he's been a Bengal, has been with top-heavy talent. So this will be very interesting. This is his 2022 Patrick Mahomes. I'm at that level type year where he has to prove where he can work with a Juju Smith-Schuster and throw for almost 50 touchdowns. Or I have Juju Smith-Schuster.
Well, he still has Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Like, T. Higgins is probably still going to play this year, right? Huh? He still is going to have T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Like, I don't think they're going to trade.
I don't know. I still think those guys probably get traded because it would be very dumb for them to sit there. I don't know if he'll get traded before the season or at the deadline, but it would be very dumb for them to sit there and say, we're going to get nothing out of you. Because, again, he's unrestricted. They can't do a little sign him and trade. Like, he could just walk. Hendrickson, yes, you could have him the entire season. But if a guy's basically saying, I don't want to be here, his mind is somewhere else. So I think they kind of have to get rid of him. I think it would be foolish not to. So I'm already kind of putting that in there. Yes, if he still has T. Higgins and he has Jamar Chase, you're still in a division where everyone else got better. And I don't know. I still think there'll be a team that floats around 10 wins, but I just don't think that they're in that era anymore where they can win 7-8 games in a row and finish with 11 wins or 12 wins like they did before. That's just not going to happen. You know, that's what they've done every single season where they've won 11 to 12 games, where they've won 8 to 9 straight games in a row. They can't do that anymore. But yeah, I think every team kind of got what they needed. Let us know, guys, what you guys thought of some of these picks and what some of the winners and losers were. Zach, last thing, what grade would you give the Kansas City Chiefs draft?
I'll give it an A-. Okay, the
A
only
minus.
reason it's
I
not an
like it. I
A,
gave it a B plus, A minus.
the only reason it's not an A is I feel like for an A or A plus draft, you need to get your guys while staying put and retaining value on your other picks. And that's one thing we didn't do. Beach was very aggressive, lost a third round pick in exchange for a fourth, and lost a seventh, and then lost a sixth to move up one spot. And so I feel like you have to kind of dock some points because he got his guys, but maybe the execution could have been better. Now, if Kingsley gets taken with that second round pick, then we're not having the same conversation. But I feel like you got to dock points for just losing value throughout the draft.
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure you guys comment below. Make sure you guys check us out on all of our social medias. All right, guys. This is after the draft. We're getting closer and closer and closer to the NFL seasons. We'll be back on our normal schedule very, very soon. Kind of closer to July. That's when we'll get back on our normal schedule. But yeah, we just make sure you guys have your post notifications on because we're kind of spotty with the post when we not post. With my medical stuff, you'll see Zach sometimes do some solo shows where we'll bring on some guests. We're going to have some more guests on here soon, but we'll see you guys next time on the TPT podcast.